Okay, everybody, it's Monday night. Welcome back. Hope you had a good week. I did. Who am I? Curtis Childs. I'm with the Swedenborg Foundation. I'm going to be your host tonight. The Swedenborg Foundation, if this is your first time joining us, is a nonprofit group that has a mission to get Swedenborg's ideas, the things he wrote down, his accounts, out there into the conversation. So thanks for helping us do that tonight. We are going to be going through this book tonight, Our Life After Death by Swedenborg, and you can download that book for free. As always, we made you a really short link right here if you want to click that. I mean, you can't click it live like this, so that's why we made it short. You can type it in if you want, or if that seems like too much, just go to the description of the YouTube video you're watching this on, click show more, and there'll be a link to download it right in there. Today's a special day because we're going to be talking about our revival from death, which is the name of the chapter we're going to go into, and a really fascinating topic, don't you think? What's it like after we die? And I think that's something that probably has crossed everyone's mind at some point. Before we go in, let's get our minds right. I'm talking about Swedenborg's concept of love and wisdom going together. In short, everything in life has this duality to it, good and truth, he called it, or love and wisdom. And how it applies here is if we're trying to gather wisdom, like we're trying to learn facts, and learn things, it should be to construct some kind of loving attitude in us. He said that all wisdom, all knowledge should be going towards creating love. So we're looking at these accounts and these ideas with the intention that it's going to make us into better, more with it, more relaxed, more open, optimistic people, and somehow this wisdom is going to be paired with love. So let's get that in the brain, and then let's start. We're going to be following along with a PDF. This is what you can download, and you can see the text just like I can, and I'm going to show it to you right now. Let's start it off. Beginning of the chapter, Our Revival from Death. If you're just loading the PDF now, page 15. That's where we are. You can watch previous episodes to get everything else. So let's get right into it. This is Swedenborg describing an experience he had and how it's going to be for us, potentially. When someone's body can no longer perform its functions in the material world in response to the thoughts and emotions of its spirit, which come to it from the spiritual world, then we say that the individual has died. So that's a big sentence, and I first want to look at this part where it says, can no longer perform its functions in the material world in response to the thoughts and emotions of its spirit, which come to it from the spiritual world. And we've gone over this concept before, that Swedenborg says that, yeah, the thoughts and feelings, the things inside us, that is spiritual. I mean, we're getting spiritual input there, just like you're getting physical input from your senses. Your thoughts and feelings are coming in via your spirit. So what he's saying here is that once that communication has been broken, then we say that the individual has died. This happens when the breathing of the lungs and the pumping motion of the heart have ceased. But in fact, that person has not died at all. He or she is only separated from the physicality that was useful to that individual in the world. The essential person is actually still alive. I say that because it is not our bodies that make us human, but our spirits. After all, it is the spirit inside us that thinks, and thought, along with emotion, makes us human. And I want to point out some dualities here. Thought and emotion, heart and lungs. This is part of, I was mentioning before, this love and wisdom thing. This shows up everywhere in Swedenborg. He actually says that the heart and lungs in us correspond or are an image of love and wisdom, in that the heart is like love and the lungs are like wisdom, that the lungs are pulling in oxygen like the mind can pull in concepts, and the heart is beating and pumping blood just like our love or our motivations are what give life to our endeavors. He's saying that is that's a duality there. So you kind of see these themes pop up all through his work, and he's saying that it's when those two motions stop, the heart and the lungs, those essential motions that represent the deeper processes of the soul. Once those stop, that's when we separate. So let's go back, and so he begins this next paragraph by saying, we can see then that when we die, we simply move from one world into another. And I want to point out this phrase here. If you came here via Facebook on the Heaven and Hell Facebook page, You probably recognize that sentence. It is on the banner there, and that's where it comes from. And it really encapsulates Swedenborg's, his whole, one of the pillars of his whole worldview is this idea there's two worlds, and we're in both of them right now, but when the death is just, right now we're primarily physical, like the main sensory input that we get is physical, it's the main thing that's going on for us, but death is simply flipping that to our spiritual eyes open, the senses of the spirit become activated, and then we're there. And what I wanted to do is kind of look at some modern accounts of this same phenomenon. So Swedenborg is describing this life after death, but you probably all have heard of near-death experiences, which are recent accounts, what we call recent accounts now of people who say that they've had a glimpse of the other side. And I wanted to look for some parallels between people's experiences and between what Swedenborg reports. So we have some little clips that go with the text we're reading, and we didn't have to dig around a ton to get them. And this was just sort of the first few we came across. Instantly you see parallels. So this first one has to do with, I want to talk about, so Swedenborg says, when we die, we simply move from one world into another. And this is a guy describing the seamlessness of that transition.
I lost consciousness. Now, I say I lost consciousness, but there was no break in my awareness. It wasn't like going to sleep and waking up. It was, I was here and then I was not. And
I love seeing like that, seeing a person who you can, it seems to me like, oh yeah, they've seen something. And I love seeing people describe it because there's kind of there's this honesty in it, and it's just different. It's different from hearing someone talk about something theoretically, somebody who's had an experience. There's just a whole different vibe. So anyway, that was one that I felt like went right with what Swedenborg is describing, of moving from one world into another. So let's look back at the text. So when we die, we simply move from one world into another. This is why in the inner meaning of the word, death means resurrection and a continuation of life. And when he says the word here, Swedenborg is talking about the Bible, what we now call the Bible. And because he had this whole, and this is obviously a topic, a large topic we can only briefly skim the surface of, but here's my skim. Swedenborg says that there's symbolism all throughout the Old and New Testament, and that it's all talking about these deeper spiritual realities. And so he's saying here, when death is mentioned in the Bible, it's talking actually about this resurrection of the spirit. So going back to it, he says our spirits are very closely linked with our breathing and our heartbeat. And that's that duality I'm talking about again, the breathing and the heartbeat. Thought links to our breathing, and love's emotions link to our heart. Now, that's not really something that is all that out of the ordinary. We often talk, okay, you're having racing thoughts, okay, well, you're getting upset, breathe, and all kinds of, yoga, meditation, all these kind of spiritual practices. We'll talk about, all right, let's control their breath, and it's sort of a thought, or relax with the breath, and it's a mechanism in a way. And then obviously heart, we use that interchangeably with emotions. You broke my heart, or whatever. We use that to mean emotion. So he's making a connection that we all make anyway. All right, so love's emotions linked to our heart. As a result, when these two emotions in the body cease, a separation immediately occurs. So he's saying that it's the heart and lungs that keep the spirit attached to the body, and that when those stop, a separation happens. It is these two motions, the respiratory motion of the lungs and the pumping of the heart, that are the essential ties. Once they are severed, the spirit is left to itself, and the body, being now without the life of its spirit, cools and decays. So here you have, he's saying that, yeah, those are the two places where the spirit joins most closely with the body. And if you watched an earlier, like two episodes ago, we talked about how the spirit is connected to every part of the body. It's in every single little physical structure that we have, the little nerve endings in the ear, all the way to your hands, everything, all the organ systems, it's all connected to the spirit. But he's saying that there's a primary connection in the heart and in the lungs, that when that's severed, the spirit detaches. And as soon as the spirit's gone, the material of the body, as he says, begins to cool and decay, as in the life force is gone, and the matter just becomes matter again, and it just does what matter does. It's not held together and animated by the spirit anymore. So he's saying that the heart and the lungs are are an essential connection between the spirit and between the body. And I think that's part of why we talk so much about the heart and feeling, and then we think so much about breathing when it comes to thoughts. Talks a little bit about this sort of connection, the heart-lungs connection, and the heart and lungs show up all over in Swedenborg's works. In his book Divine Love and Wisdom, he spends this huge amount of time talking about the importance of the heart and lungs symbolizing sort of the two basic faculties of human life, which he calls the will and the understanding, or the volition and discernment. That's basically what we would call thinking and feeling. And he says that those are what make us us, our thoughts and our feelings. He has a lot to say about the relationship between the two, and he's also saying that you can learn something about that relationship by looking at the heart and the lungs. So let's look back at the text. The reason our spirits are very closely linked with our breathing and our heart is that our vital processes depend on these, not only in the body as a whole, but in every part as well. After this separation, our spirit stays in the body briefly, but not after the heart has completely stopped, which occurs at different times depending on the cause of death. So it doesn't, you're not always right out of there, which some people have reported in their experiences. In some cases, the motion of the heart continues for quite a while, and in others, it does not. The moment it does stop, we are awakened, but only the Lord awakens us. Being awakened means having our spirit let out of our body and into the spiritual world. It is commonly called resurrection. And so when he says it is commonly called resurrection, he's talking to the world of his day. He's talking to, there was the Christian church was the primary force in Europe, and so this concept of resurrection was around a lot, and you saw it in the Bible. And he's saying that what the resurrection is the spirit leaving the body. There were some ideas about, okay, the resurrection is happening, the body's going to come back to life, but he's saying actually the resurrection that we're talking about is right immediate for everybody. And it was in that we saw that near-death experience account that guy gave earlier, and he said there was no break in my consciousness. Right away I was in the other life. So something to think about. And I've been talking for a while. We want to get to some questions. If you're new here, we like to try to have sort of a discussion feel, so I like to bring up questions and comments that you guys contribute. So if you want to do that, you're watching it on YouTube, just go, the comment section is to the right of the video, just enter one in and we'll try to get it. Or if you came from Facebook and you don't have a YouTube account, go back to Facebook where you found this and write it in, and we'll try to find it and get it up. So let's take a look at our first one. This is from YouTube. I think it's scientifically agreed that the universe is probably infinite. If so, how does Swedenborg deal with extraterrestrial life? Are there other heavens? Does God reside over all the worlds? And it's a great question. There was sort of you remember there was all this controversy with Galileo, right? Because he was saying, I hope this is what the thing that he said, that the Earth goes around the sun instead of the sun going around the Earth. And he caught flack from the church at the time because the idea was, well, we've got to be the center of the universe because we're God's creation, we're God's primary creation, and what does that say about is religion? So it's kind of this thing that's been on religion. Well, look, we're finding out, via telescopes, via instruments, that man, the universe is huge. Probably we haven't found an end. If it does end, we don't think it does. How could all this drama, of the whole universe just be about these relatively few people on this one tiny little planet, on the fringe of the galaxy, one galaxy of a trillion galaxies. The question is, are there life on other planets, and are there heavens for them too, or what? So the answer is yes. Swedenborg actually goes into extensive detail about extraterrestrials, and he says that he actually, in the spirit world, there's no, like here, you can't visit aliens because that takes a long time in a spaceship, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years to get to the closest stars. But he's saying that their distance is no issue. So he actually said that he met spirits from people who had died that lived on this world, but he also met with spirits of people from other worlds. And he referred to even people from other worlds as part of the human race. That all, like, I guess, sentient, intelligent life he called part of the human race. So the answer is yes. Swedenborg has a lot to say about it. And you can look up, you can download his material. He has a book called Earths in the Universe where he talks there. It's fascinating stuff. And he says that, yeah, that to God, even one planet full of people is like nothing. So the universe was not made just for us locally. He says that there's a whole other universe out there. So that's the tip of the iceberg, but he has a lot more to say about it. Okay, so let's get to the next question or next comment. This is from Facebook. You say that our thoughts and feelings are who we are. What about when we have thoughts and feelings we don't like? Are they us, the deeper part of us, or something else? And that's great, and I like that because it's kind of catching me, because I'll say something, but like, oh, our thoughts and feelings are who we are, but yeah, it's not that simple. And that's a great point, because all the time I don't know about you, my friends, but I have thoughts that I wish I didn't have, and I have feelings that I wish I didn't have, and that's pretty much all the time. And I think that a lot of people are dealing with that. You get negative, draining, annoying thoughts, or you get ego, sort of petty feelings. And is that us? Is that our deeper nature? So the answer is nope. It's not, and this is what I mean. Swedenborg says that the spirit, like we were talking about before, that the spirit is in the spiritual world, and we can actually get negative and positive input from the spiritual world. So you can actually, from negativity there, you can get negative thoughts and negative feelings. And actually, one of the things that I've found the most freeing about Swedenborg's ideas is this idea that, oh, it's not you, that these thoughts and feelings don't have to be you. And that was something that Swedenborg discovered, is that he was bumping into spirits in the afterlife all the time, and their conversations were shaping the conversations in his head, and that he was able to, once he understood it, he could push that as, okay, that's not me, and it really gave him this sense of choice, like that's coming in. And just like here, if there was some a talk radio, like whatever political leaning you really don't like came on your radio station, you would turn it off. You'd switch channels. And he's saying that we have the ability to do that, and that we all have sort of deeper thoughts and feelings that some are ones we want to have around. There's other, we all have things about ourselves that we want to change, and that by consistently rejecting the thoughts and feelings that we don't feel like belong, we can change our deeper natures. We can, and this is the process that Swedenborg says we call regeneration, where God is taking us and sort of planting new plants, growing a new garden in us, bringing, getting rid of the negativity and the judgmentalism and the ego and everything else that comes with that, and kind of bringing goodness and truth into it. So we certainly can affect the thoughts and feelings and where they come from. And no, not everything is you. I mean, our motivations that we shape over the course of our life are sort of the foundation for our spirit, but it doesn't mean that everything that walks through your head is you. So hopefully I didn't make that more confusing than it was before, but if I did, I'm sorry. Okay, let's get to the next one. This is from YouTube. My dad died in '98 and my son was killed in 2012. And I wanted to know, how long does one stay before they go to either destination? So the first thing I would say is that that's rough. That's really hard to lose family members like that. So it's also a personal thing. So I appreciate you being willing to share that with all of us. And I'll, from what Swedenborg says, what I think the question is referencing is Swedenborg described sort of a world of spirits, is what he called it, like a place we get to at first, and then there's heaven and hell, which I can only go into it briefly, but his idea of heaven and hell is different from the traditional one. Hell, you only go to hell if that's where you want to go. And what I mean is, if you love evil, like you turn on like one of these crime shows, and it describes like a serial killer or somebody who scams someone out of their money, and they're kind of chasing this love of power, of dominion or something. If that's what you chase, that pulls you away from heaven, which is love, and so you make your own life hell. It's a little different than that God is locking you in there and hurting you in there, that it's actually your own evil that's making your life miserable, and that happens in this life. That our negative tendencies make our own life miserable, and then heaven is this mutual love, and so in the spiritual world they create these two different places which are called heaven and hell. So this person is wondering, how long before the people we love are making their decisions? And Swedenborg says that you come into initially sort of a sorting out place, which is the world of spirits, and the time we spend there depends on how similar our inside is with our outside. There are some people who go to great lengths to kind of disguise what they're really like inside, and there are other people who are sort of an open book. We call it, they act like they are. And so kind of the world of spirits is you sorting it out, and you finding out who you truly are and who you want to be, and then you gravitate towards where you're actually going to be the happiest, because that's the way the whole thing's set up. So Swedenborg says the longest that would take is about 30 years, the equivalent of. So somebody can be sorting themselves out for quite a long time, or some people, he says, will know right away where they want to go, and they'll zip right there. So again, there. And I don't know how young your son was, but Swedenborg says that all children immediately go up to heaven. So there's that. And as far as the rest of us, it takes us some time to work it out, but hopefully we can get things sorted out and move on to happier and happier things. Great questions. So if you guys want your questions to be in the next one, just write them down, and we'll get to those in a little bit. But let's get back to the text. Here we're reading through Our Life After Death, the PDF you can download with a link in the description. If you're just joining us, we're on page 16. So we're down here where it says, the reason our spirit is not separated from our body until the motion of the heart has stopped is that the heart corresponds to love's emotion, which is our essential life, since all of us get our vital warmth from love. And this is a little bit of what I was talking about with your deeper thoughts and feelings being who you are. Swedenborg says our love is our life, and that not meaning like romantic love is your life. He's meaning that what you care about most deeply is who you are. And he says that there are these two sort of categories, like at the base of your life, what's the most important thing can be yourself and your own interests, or it can be love for others, and caring about making sure other people's lives are happy and well, and that you can kind of have the what's your primary motivator. If all the chips are down, if it comes down to it, what do you love? And that's forming your spirit, and we kind of shape those loves based on our decisions and all that. So we get all our vital warmth from love. So long as the heart and the emotions are joined, the correspondence remains, and the life of the spirit is still in the body. So there is this connection between the emotions and the physical heart, and that's part of how the spirit stays connected, he says, and that's where we get all this current language about how we how we talk about heart as emotion. So he says that's where we get that kind of language from, is we sense on a deeper level these connections, and we know that's what's going on, and that's why this comes into sort of our common language, and that there's a lot of things like that in all kinds of areas of speech and thought, that the spiritual world really is seeping into our day-to-day life, even if we're not totally aware of it. So we're going to switch gears here a little bit. He's been talking a little bit of theory so far, and Swedenborg can get that way. He can be very theoretical and abstract at times, but here he's going to tell us, it's the story of when he was shown what the dying process is like. So we're going to look at his story together right now. Do you want to? All right, let's do it. I have not only been told how the awakening happens, I have been shown by first-hand experience. The actual experience happened to me so that I could have a full knowledge of how it occurs. So he was basically given a class on, this is what it's like. This is what it's like to die. Here's his description. I was brought into a state in which my physical senses were inoperative, very much then like the state of people who are dying. However, my deeper life and thought remained intact, so that I could perceive and retain what was happening to me and what happens to people who are being awakened from death. So, are you with me so far? He's saying that I was being shown this process of what it's like to die, but I would sort of had the camera rolling, so I could be watching myself have this experience, so that I could learn it and ultimately report it back to us, so that we could learn it and talk about it here on YouTube. Okay, so I noticed that my physical breathing was almost suspended, and a deeper breathing, a breathing of the spirit, continued along with a very slight and silent physical one. And just to pause briefly, he often talks about the importance of breath with the spirit, and how we're breathing is how we're connecting to the spirit. At first, a connection was established between my heartbeat and the heavenly kingdom. And when he says heavenly kingdom, that's the third. There are different levels of heaven, which are based on different levels of the mind being open, and the heavenly is the deepest or highest, because that kingdom corresponds to the human heart. I also saw angels from that kingdom, some at a distance, but two sitting close to my head. And I want to stop here, and let's take a look at another death experience, because Swedenborg often mentions two angels, and here he mentions that there are two angels near his head. There were others around, but there are two, and Swedenborg says that there are two angels that are always with us, one interacting with our feelings and another interacting with our thoughts. Just again, that duality that we're talking about. So here we have a clip of somebody talking about this two angels.
There were two guides with me in this space that communicated with me through thoughts alone. At some point, I was asked if I wanted to stay with them or go back and live my life. I remember feeling drawn in by the beauty and love surrounding me. And in some sense, I wanted to stay.
And if we don't have the clips up now in the description for these videos, we'll put them up so when it's taped, so that you guys can get to watch the whole videos if you're interested, because I think watching people describe their near-death experiences is really cool and worth doing. But you see there that she's calling them, Swedenborg called them angels. It's terminology. They're talking about the same thing, and she's saying that there was two, and he's talking about two. So I like it. I like to see things line up, because it makes me think, oh, are we really seeing something here? And they're talking about the same sort of reality. All right, so let's look at more of what Swedenborg says. Two sitting close to my head. The effect was to take away all my own emotions, but to leave me still in possession of thought and higher perception. I remained in this state for several hours. So interesting that they want to take away, not take away permanently, but they're kind of lulling the emotions to sleep and just letting him continue in thought. Then the spirits who were around me gradually drew away, thinking that I was dead. And so this is worth mentioning, that Swedenborg says we're always in spiritual company, and that when he had this sort of in his mid-50s, this what we call awakening, where his day-to-day life became being able to see into the spiritual world, talk to spirits, and he learned, hey, there's always spirits around me. And so there he's saying he's going through this dying process, and the spirits that are around him anyway are like, oh, he's dead. We're gonna back off. So that's what he's talking about there, thinking that I was dead. I sensed a sweet odor like that of an embalmed body, because when heavenly angels are present, anything having to do with a corpse smells sweet. So that sounds a little like a corpse, but what he's talking about, people would put on, and they still do, probably different compounds, but they put nice smelling things on somebody who had died, because to kind of mask the smell. And Swedenborg is saying that when angels are present, what would be horrible, or sad or tragic, death, turns sweet, because it's this idea of resurrection. This is also how evil spirits are kept away from our spirit when we are being admitted into eternal life. That Swedenborg mentions what he calls evil spirits, and these are people that are now in the spiritual world who are, not nice people. They're bent on exploiting people. There are people who are doing the same kind of thing on earth, but they would cause trouble. They're trying to harass people or control them or harm them in some way, and that the presence of these angels is keeping these evil spirits at bay, so that Swedenborg can have this like safe and calm and smooth transition into this afterlife. So that's what he's talking about there. So there's kind of always this another duality, which is this good and evil, and he has all this cool stuff to say about how one balances out the other, and that even people who are bent on evil can be gotten to do some work that helps others. And anyway, it's a whole other world. I've been talking for a while, so let's get back into here. Let's see the next round of comments, questions. So the first one that we have here is, this is from Facebook. A person who had an NDE, which is NDE stands for near-death experience, told me that before her experience she had no belief in God. Since then she has no doubts about God or afterlife. She also said that though she couldn't explain it now, she had the clear conviction that everything going on in this world makes sense or has purpose. And that is one of my favorite, probably my favorite thing about, there's too many cool things about near-death experiences. If you guys haven't read them, there's a lot of good books on them. There are great YouTube clips, but one thing that people say is when they get there, they're shown why. Like we're all kind of marching through this pretty painful experience of life that can be a drag and can be confusing, and it seems random, and it seems cruel, and it seems long. And why? If there's a loving God, if there's heaven, there's all this good stuff, why do we go through this? And everybody who I've ever heard of having a near-death experience, once they're shown why everything is happening, okay, that's cool, that's fine. I no longer have a problem with life. The reasons are so good, and so there is this sense of purpose that this person that's being referenced in the comment sees, that somehow everything that bothers you about life, once you see the why and the good that it's accomplishing, you have this sense of peace at it. And Swedenborg calls it divine providence, the guidance of God in everything. And that it doesn't mean that everything bad that happens is what God wants to have happen, but there are some things that are hard now but good can be brought out of, and that once you see it, it's beautiful and it changes the way. There's this one near-death experience that I'm thinking of where there was a woman who, and she was like 21 or 22, and before that she had been really upset about life and like the Vietnam War and didn't know why people suffered, but after her experience she really felt like she had a context for it and was thinking, okay, it doesn't mean things aren't bad and that they don't hurt and we shouldn't be trying to help people, but there's good coming out of it. So anyway, thank you very much for that. We got two more, so let's take a look at one. What about suicide? What happens to the soul? And that's a great question, and one that probably hits close to home for people. I have lost close buddies to that, and it's a huge mass of emotions around something like that, and especially when sort of religion comes into it and thoughts about an afterlife, because there are some religious traditions that say suicide is that's an automatic ticket to hell. So not only are you sad and upset that this person is gone, but you also know you're never going to see him again. Swedenborg doesn't say that, and actually you're watching this video on YouTube right now on our Off the Left Eye channel. If you look, we have a video called the Swedenborg Minute. We have a series of those, and one is about suicide. And what it says in there is that heaven and hell aren't rewards and punishments based on a sort of a scorecard for life. They are where you go based on, as we were talking about before, your character, like who you have decided to be over the course of your life. So no one mistake, especially suicide, is often reached at a point when someone's having mental illness, or they've lost perspective. Something isn't working right, and so no one decision, even one like that is so painful and devastating for people, even one like that is not going to determine who someone is. I think you probably, Swedenborg he just barely mentions suicide, but he does mention that, it's not something like, oh, you kill yourself and then you're fine. You have to deal with a lot of stuff, going through that, but because you obviously have a lot of issues to work out if you were taking a step that drastic. But no, I mean that you would get the help you need. You would get the chance to get right again, and then you start making your life decisions. It's not that somebody kills himself and then that's it. Because if you've known someone who's done it, you know that before they were the person that they became, who took their life, there was another them, and that's the them that you want them to get back to before they're in any position to make any kind of big decision. So that's a little bit on it there. Okay, we have one more, so let's get to that one. This is from YouTube. Do they stay the same age as when they died, and do they know they are dead? Do they come back to Earth and see us and make some contact if moving objects is possible? Is that our loved ones? So there's a couple questions there. They're all great. I really appreciate you guys asking these questions. So I'll try to remember those. The first is about age. And Swedenborg says that, no, we don't remain our same age, that you progress towards the prime of life. And so if you died as a child, you grow up into young adulthood. If you died old, you grow back into young adulthood. And he says that this is because the spirit is ageless. And as we're perfected in love and grow in wisdom, that our bodies become an image of that. So the more and more that we're being perfected and or improved and growing and change, the more young and healthy and beautiful we become. So that's that. Can they contact us? I mean, I certainly hear a lot of stories about people saying that they see and hear loved ones, and all of Swedenborg's experience was safe, and that if the right things happen, we can be opened up to that. As far as the moving objects, I have no idea. I hear a lot of people say, yeah, could they have put this thing here or done that? I don't know. It's a big world. It very well could be. I don't know how the mechanics of it would work. Swedenborg says the spiritual world and the physical world are connected at every level. So there could be some kind of mechanism where the spiritual world can touch the physical world rather than in other ways than it touches it right now through living people. So I don't know. What I would say, my gut is, if something feels like it's got heaven in it, then it's got heaven in it. And because so many people have these touching stories about something that that they had lost, or something, an object that meant something about this person that had died suddenly showed up, on the mantle or whatever. I feel like if that's telling you something. So I'm not the expert. I don't have all the answers on that, but I really appreciate you bringing it up. So we're gonna have one more question segment at the end, but let's get on to back to the old Swedenborg text. So back to the PDF. The angels. So we're here, and Swedenborg is talking about waking up in the next life. The angels who were sitting beside my head were silent, simply sharing their thoughts with mine. So let's take a break. I know we just got back to it, but this sharing of thoughts comes up in near-death experiences as well, this sort of telepathy. And here we have a little clip of somebody describing this kind of sharing happening to them.
We communicated telepathically, so our mouths didn't move, but I thought and she received, and she thought and I heard. And I thought, I miss you. And what came back to me was, I know.
I love that at the end. I know. Isn't that what they would say? The people on the other side understand the depth of our grief here and what we go through on this side, and just kind of the love in there and the understanding and the comfort. I really like how she puts that, and that's why it's cool to go look at people who have experienced it, because you get the emotional nuances of it. Okay, so let's get back to Swedenborg describing it. So sharing their thoughts with mine, just like she's saying, when the deceased accepts those thoughts, the angels know that the person's spirit is ready to be led out of the body. Isn't that an interesting little nuance? That there's so many little systems that Swedenborg is saying that angels don't just know that you're ready to be led out of the body. They are sending thoughts, and they're watching. Like, okay, is he accepting? Is he accepting? Oh, he just got him. Okay, let's bring him out. Like there are just like life here, you have to watch things and study and learn that the angels are doing what seems like a sacred process is it. So anyway, I find that interesting trivia. They accomplish this sharing of thoughts by looking into my face. This is actually how thoughts are shared in heaven. And Swedenborg says that thoughts can be communicated directly there, at all times, which I think also they can be communicated verbally. But you know, there's sort of this communication as well. It sounds like their overall communication is much better on the other side. You can communicate more quickly, more immediately. There's none of this. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I'm trying to say? As in, if I was doing this show in the other world, it would be a lot clearer and better than it is now. That's the takeaway. So we're gonna wrap up. We have 2 more little paragraphs of Swedenborg's account to read, and then we'll get to a few more questions. So last chance to get your questions in. Just leave them at the side of the YouTube video or on Facebook where you were. Thanks so much to everyone who's been asking questions. So let's see what he has to say. And we're actually going to have to, because of time, we're going to be breaking in the middle of his description of the dying process, but we'll pick it up next week. All right, so stay with me. Since I had been left in possession of thought and higher perception so that I could learn and remember how awakening happens, I noticed that at first the angels were examining my thoughts to see whether they were like those of dying individuals who are normally thinking about eternal life. So they're just kind of checking out, okay, because most people when they're dying are thinking, oh yeah, you know, what happens to me after I die? So they wanted to keep my mind in these thoughts. I was later told that as the body is breathing its last, our spirit is kept in its final thought until eventually it comes back to the thoughts that flowed from our basic or ruling love in the world. And this is more of him talking about that core basic part of our character. That's what attracts these thoughts to us, and that they kind of hold you over, like they grab your last thought, and then as you make this transition, when you start to regain your footing in the spiritual world, the thoughts you have been calling before kind of come back. Not that all thoughts are your fault. Sometimes they're coming in from, anyway, there's a whole world of where do thoughts come from, and I think we'll get into that one of these days. But for now, we got to get to our questions. We got a couple more here before we're done. Okay, first question is, I recently came across Swedenborg's idea of divine laws of providence. Could you expand a little on this? But I touched on it a little before. Providence is the term that Swedenborg uses to describe God's government of the universe. Basically the answer to, like, why do things happen, why do bad things happen to good people, all of that the idea that Swedenborg got this sort of inside knowledge on the workings of the divine in the world. And he writes a whole book on it, and that there are many other references to it throughout his other works, but I'll try to give a couple little points about it, which is that God is thinking about what's eternal, meaning what's in our spirits, and that you can tell on a small scale there are events that happen in life that aren't so fun at the time, but when you look back on them you think that worked out for the best, and that what really works out for the best long term is what shapes who we are as a person, because when we go to the spiritual world we don't bring anything that who we are as a person, and that we can be taught lessons that stay with us and have kind of this eternal benefit, and that is a lot of why life is the way it is. Also, there is this human free will that's being dealt with, and that we do live in a system where actions have consequences, and the actions of other people can affect us, and that's part of why, but that God is always guiding it so that no evil is allowed except that more good comes out of it, and it may be down the road, but that's always being balanced, and that there's a lot more to it. So those are some of the basics, but if any of you are interested, go to Swedenborg.com, which is the Swedenborg Foundation's website. You can download his book Divine Providence for free and start to have a look at those yourself. Okay, let's get to the next one. This is from Facebook. In my NDE, so this is in my near-death experience, so this is somebody who's had one. Thank you very much for sharing. The place I entered was calm, peaceful, and comforting. I could see a very bright light, traveling toward the light very quickly. The only thought I had was, no matter how fast I travel or how long I stay, I am not going to reach the light. Then the doctor woke me up. The experience has left me with no fear of death. I came back a medium and a healer, and I cried my heart out for 2 days after I came back. Well, thank you. Thanks for sharing that experience. That's cried your heart out for 2 days. So whatever they saw there, it moved them. And it sounds like something spiritual was opened for this person and stayed opened. And also the fear of death, that you across all experiences, everyone says, "Oh, I'm not afraid of death anymore." So if the people who are getting close to it find out it's not so bad, maybe the rest of us don't need to be afraid of it either. Thanks so much for sharing. Let's get to another question. You say that all children go to heaven, but I find that a tricky concept, because does that mean that if a serial killer, rapist, or Hitler had died as a child, would they have gone to heaven? So that was from YouTube, by the way. And if I don't have time to get to your questions today, just leave them on the recorded version of the video if you're watching this in post, or if you're watching this afterwards, and leave a question there, and we'll either try to get it to it next week, or I'll try to write a text response or something like that. So okay, so this is a whole can of worms that we've opened here, which is, first of all, okay, so if there's somebody who's going to grow up to be a murderer or something, if they die as a kid, do they go to heaven? Is that fair? But the question is, if they died then, are they really a murderer because they never actually went and did it? So it gets into like potentials and time travel. This is, I like to honor anybody's sort of emotional objections to any, like, it's fine to have emotional objections to the comments that I make here, because they come from this sense of, wait, like, what's really fair? And that's from love. And at the beginning we're talking about love and wisdom, so that's important. So if you doubt any of these ideas, out of love for people, that's cool. I like that. What I would say is, this kind of goes with the previous question about providence, and that I would think if God can foresee things, and that if somebody was gonna had these tendencies in them, or was gonna be making those choices, that they have to, that we're thinking about that person, we're thinking about the people they hurt, but you also got to think about that person, and we want them to have a chance to not be consumed by this evil, and choose a life that's where they're gone, and you can't get them back into the light. So if somebody had that coming, it's almost like maybe they wouldn't die as a child, because then they would never have a chance to. Swedenborg says evils have to be seen before they're removed. So if somebody is out and, I don't know, if actually commits them or tries to and gets caught, or there's a chance there that they would be able to uproot that from themselves. But if they never had so basically my answer is, that's above my pay grade. Like, I don't know the answer to that. Those are a few thoughts on the start of it, and these are the big questions. But I get what you're saying, that it wouldn't be so. In one sense, oh yeah, of course, every kid should go to heaven. But then it's like, well, but yeah, what if there was somebody bad or something? So my answer is, I don't know. But it's a good question, and hopefully those are some little tidbits of thinking at it from a Swedenborgian perspective. So let's do our last comment or question for the night. From YouTube, what does Swedenborg say about after-death communication from loved ones and coincidences, and how we can know we have received a message from the spiritual world? So Swedenborg says that the spiritual world is right around us all the time, and that if we just had our spiritual senses opened, meaning our spiritual eyes, spiritual ears, that we could communicate that world and hear from them all the time. So I would say, in light of that, he actually describes, he says that because of his condition where he was so open to the spiritual world, actually those on the other side could see what he was seeing at times. And then he said people would see their families who they had left behind, and they wanted him to tell their families, like, we're okay, it's fine, So there's certainly people want to make that communication, and I would think that it almost seems like the world is more spiritually open now than it was then, that you have all these near-death experiences. There were some then, I'm sure, but it seems like there are more now. And I've heard so many people talking about seeing a loved one having, or hearing something, or having a dream that didn't feel like it was a dream, something like that, that it seems like, yeah, they can communicate with us. And as far as the rest of the stuff in the question, whether or not how they can communicate with us, I think I'd be a fool to think I know all the ways. It seems like there are so many potential ways that we can be, that providence can lead us to be aware of something. So as I said to the other one, if it feels like somebody's communicating with you, they are, or it might be that even in your good thoughts and feelings, they're there with you. I always feel like I can't do these questions justice because they're so good, but that's my best shot at it. We're going to close with a segment that we usually close with, which I call correspondences. And this is, Swedenborg has this idea that we can see images of spiritual processes in physical processes that are going on. So we look at nature and phenomena there. We can actually see an image and a picture of what's going on in us and in the spiritual world that actually can give us insight into it. So today we're going to look at fire. And that Swedenborg says fire corresponds to love. And we'll look at it in the positive sense of that you can burn for someone else, or that lit a fire under them, that we kind of have the burning desire to something. So looking at fire, you can see the potency and the energy and of love. And so what the game works like this. Swedenborg says that you can gain deeper insight by picturing the concept, in this case love, while looking at the object. So we're going to look at images of fire, just 30 seconds, just a short one. And if you're picturing love and trying to look at that and knowing that's an image of that, you may get some deeper insights about the nature of love, or just this kind of good feeling of like, oh yeah, that is that. So we're going to be looking, and remember, picture love, and we're going to see the fire that represents it. Obviously, you don't have to be looking at online images of fire. I mean, you can see the real thing, and gaining probably much more insight from that. You go back and look at our other episodes of this show, you'll see the other correspondence segments that we had about some other things. So I hope that was fun for you. Before we go, if you want to support the program, you can donate to the Swedenborg Foundation. It's a nonprofit 501c3, and we have a matching grant thing, so your PayPal donations will actually go a lot farther. Just open the description of this video and click the link there to donate. We'll just go to help spreading this show to other people. So much appreciated. Thank you guys for coming. You've been a really good audience. I really love the questions, as I always do, but this time I really, really, really love them. We're going to be back next Monday, same time. So bring up so much for being a part of this, and hope you'll join us next week when we move through the second half of Swedenborg's journey.